Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Under the burning sun of Africa, a storm was brewing, one not of weather but of destiny. A young leader stood at the crossroads of hope and despair, faced with a choice that could either unite his people or doom them forever. He was loved by many, feared by others, and watched closely by powerful forces that wanted him silenced. In a land scarred by poverty and betrayal, he dared to dream of transformation. But at what cost would that dream survive? In the heart of Burkina Faso, where red earth meets endless horizons, a new face of leadership emerged. Ibrahim Traoré was not born into power or privilege. He was a son of ordinary soil, shaped by the struggles of his people, and driven by a hunger for dignity in a land too often forgotten by the world. As a soldier, he walked among his men, not above them, eating the same food, enduring the same hardships, carrying the same scars. To the young, he became a symbol of possibility. To the weary, he was a spark of hope. But beneath that hope lay shadows. The people lived with memories of betrayal, years of corruption, and wounds carved by foreign hands meddling in African destiny. Every market stall, every broken road, every village left unguarded told the story of a nation bled dry. And though Traoré rose with ideals of unity and renewal, he knew the forces waiting in the dark would not give way easily. This was not just leadership. It was a burden heavy enough to crush most men. Yet in his silence, in his steady gaze, there was a resolve that hinted at storms ahead, a storm that would test not only him, but the very soul of the nation. The hope that had once flickered in the streets of Burkina Faso was soon met with harsh winds of resistance. Powerful men who had long fed on the nation's weakness saw Ibrahim Traoré's rise as a threat to everything they controlled. Corrupt officials whispered in secret rooms, plotting to keep their grip on power. Foreign interests, once comfortable exploiting the land's resources, moved their pieces in silence. And for the people, the struggle was far from over. Traoré's vision of renewal demanded sacrifice, but every step forward came with a wall of opposition. Armed groups roamed the countryside, terrorizing villages already starved of protection. Parents buried their children. Farmers abandoned their land, and mothers whispered prayers that tomorrow might not steal another life. In the capital, voices of protest grew louder, demanding justice, demanding safety, demanding a future. But with every demand came a greater risk, for speaking truth had always been dangerous. One night, as darkness swallowed the horizon, an attack struck a remote village. Homes were burned, families scattered, and cries echoed into the night sky. By dawn, the survivors carried nothing but ashes in their hands and grief in their hearts. It was not just an attack on a village. It was a message to the new leader. Stand down or watch your nation fall apart. But Ibrahim refused to bend. Instead, he walked among the displaced, looked into the eyes of widows and orphans, and made a silent vow that their suffering would not be in vain. Still, his resolve came at a price. Each move he made tightened the noose woven by enemies who feared a united Burkina Faso. The weight of betrayal pressed heavily. Spies within his own ranks, pressure from foreign governments, whispers of coups hiding in the shadows. Yet, for every attempt to break him, a new surge of loyalty rose among the people. Young men volunteered to defend their villages. Elders spoke of dignity long denied, and women carried their voices like fire into the streets. The struggle was no longer just his. It was theirs. Still, questions loomed. Could one leader, no matter how determined, withstand the storm gathering around him? Could a nation scarred by years of injustice truly rise before its enemies crushed it once more? And as the walls closed in, one truth became certain. The fight for Burkina Faso's soul was only just beginning. The storm finally broke. For weeks, whispers of betrayal had crept through the barracks, but now the threat stood in the open. On a night heavy with silence, gunfire shattered the air around the capital. Shadows moved against shadows. Soldiers who had once sworn loyalty now turned their rifles on their own brothers. It was the moment Ibrahim Traoré had feared, and the one his enemies had been waiting for. Inside the compound, the leader refused to hide. Instead, he stepped into courtyard, facing the chaos with nothing but the weight of his oath. Bullets cracked in the distance. Smoke curled into the sky, and the line between survival and collapse grew razor thin. For his people, this was more than a battle for power. It was a test of whether hope could outlive fear. Reports came into villages once again under attack, of children carried into the night by those who thrived on chaos. The betrayal was not just political, it was personal. Every scream, every flame lit against his homeland struck at the core of his promise. And yet, in that darkest hour, something stirred. Loyal soldiers formed a shield around him, refusing to bow to the traitors. Crowds began to gather outside the gates, unarmed but unyielding, chanting his name as if their voices alone could drive back the guns. For the first time, the struggle of one man became the defiance of a nation. The enemies had hoped to break him. Instead, they unleashed a fire that could not be contained. The night was not yet over, and the battle was far from won. But one thing had become undeniable. Burkina Faso would never again be silent. When the dust of that night began to settle, the scars of battle were clear. Lives had been lost, villages still smoldered, and the threat of betrayal lingered in the air. Yet something far more powerful had emerged from the chaos. The people had found their voice. No longer waiting for salvation from outside, they stood behind their leader, demanding a future written on their own terms. For Ibrahim Traore, the fight had carved deep lines of burden across his face, but it also lit a fire in his heart. He had seen the loyalty of ordinary soldiers, the courage of unarmed crowds, and the resilience of a people who refused to bow. The struggle was not over, and the road ahead remained perilous. But the foundations of unity had been laid in blood and defiance. Across Africa, whispers of Burkina Faso's stand began to spread. To some, it was a warning that rising against the old order would always come with a price. To others, it was a spark, a reminder that even in the smallest corners of the continent, the spirit of resistance could not be extinguished. This was more than one leader's battle. It was a mirror held to the soul of a continent long divided, long exploited, yet never broken. And so the question remains, if one nation can rise from ashes and stand against the weight of history, what could Africa achieve if its people stood together, united in purpose, unshaken by fear? Because in the end, the true power of leadership is not found in titles or thrones, but in the courage to awaken a people to their own strength.